Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to our Wisconsin Visitors Edition of the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. With us today will be the radio play-by-play voice of the Badgers, Matt Lepay. Before he joins us, let's get started as we always do with my view from Section 17. I'm hoping a lot of our fan base has settled down after last week's close call with Rutgers. No, we didn't play well, but we still won, and who knows, Rutgers might be a better team than the experts think they are. At any rate, like the team, we have to move on and get ready for this week. If you were nervous last Saturday, you should be shaking by kickoff in Madison this week. Forget that the Badgers are 1-2. Forget the offense is struggling. The way the Badgers' defense is playing can cover a multitude of sins committed by the offense. I watched both the Badgers games with Penn State and then last week with Notre Dame. What I saw was a team that controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball against both of those teams. They ran 96 plays against Penn State, but found numerous ways not to score. Against Notre Dame, they held the Irish to 242 total yards and 3 yards rushing. In both of those games, the offense looked like it was close to clicking, but just kept making silly mistakes that kept them off the board. Media is jumping all over sophomore quarterback Graham Mertz, and he does have to be better, but the kid is good. He just needs to get in sync. Again, the Badgers are 1-2, but they are a big, physical, and talented team. It also helps that they play in that madhouse of a stadium up at Camp Randall, a place where we haven't won in nearly 2 decades. We need to change that. And this Saturday would be just fine with me. I'm sure you too. My guest today says the Badger defense has played well enough for them to be 3-0. He thinks the offense will be better, but as he said, it's a question of when. Up next on our Wisconsin Visitors Edition of the show is Badger radio play-by-play voice Matt Lepay, so stay with us. Here with us on our Visitors Edition of the show today is Wisconsin Badgers radio play-by-play voice Matt Lepay. Matt, once again, great to have you back on the show.
Good to be on with you. It's a beautiful fall week, so we're happy the snow isn't flying yet. So we're enjoying a nice fall week here in Wisconsin.
Well, that's good. Let's keep the snow away for a while, and hopefully it's a nice early fall. Well, it is officially fall, but hopefully a nice early fall day up in Madison. The Badgers, Matt, lost to Notre Dame on Saturday. It was a game I got to see before the Michigan game. Of course, that was at Soldier Field, a beautiful setting, 41-13, in a game that really was closer than that final score indicates. And let's start with that Wisconsin defense, Matt, which truly deserved a better fate on Saturday. Notre Dame only had 242 total yards offense, net 3 rushing. That Badger D did more than their fair share, didn't they?
Yeah, and it's really the way they played for, far more often than not the last several years. It's been statistically one of the top defenses in the country, and it's played well enough, to be brutally honest with you. It's played well enough for this team to be 3-0 instead of 1-2. The one area where they would all tell you they would like to be better is creating turnovers. They had a real big opportunity early in the game Saturday. Might have been a pick six, but the ball wasn't secured, and they ended up forcing a punt. But otherwise, I mean, they've given up. If you look at a statistics sheet right now, it'll show that Wisconsin's allowing 21 points a game. The defense is allowing 12. There have been 4 touchdowns have been scored without the defense being on the field, 3 pick sixes and a kick return. So it has played very much winning football here so far this year.
Well, that defense had 6 sacks, I believe, on Saturday, and really pounded both Notre Dame quarterbacks. A lot of hits. I never saw the final hit count, but it was a lot. The defensive line in both losses against Penn State and against Notre Dame has been dominant. They've controlled the line of scrimmage in both of those games. Talk about the D-line and some of the key contributors Michigan is going to see Saturday.
Well, the big veteran there is Matt Henningsen. He's off to a very good start again. He was a guy who actually got hurt last year in the game in Ann Arbor, so his season lasted not even 2 full games. Keanu Benton is someone they really like at the nose tackle spot. And the guy who really started to flash last week was Rodis Johnson. He played well. He forced a fumble that Wisconsin recovered in the second half of that game. It was, in the moment, a really big play. Jack Cohen had already been knocked out of the game, and they got to the backup quarterback. And, the pendulum swings of a football game, as we all know, is an interesting thing to watch. But it was a momentum-changing play in the moment. So, up front, at every level, they've been good. In the first game, they did give up a couple of big plays to Penn State, but that's an offense that can be explosive with that receiving core. But up front, they've done a very good job of controlling the line of scrimmage, and I think taking advantage at times of the Notre Dame offensive line that's in transition. They've had some injuries. They got some young guys in there. They'll probably end up being really good, but Wisconsin, for the majority of the game, did a great job with their defensive line against Notre Dame's offensive line.
And the linebacking crew also very impressive, fast to the ball, great tackling, led, of course, by Jack Sanborn. In the 2 games that I've seen, it's hard to find fault with how they've played. That is a good group, isn't it?
It is, and they were helped last week with the return of Leo Chanel, who missed the first 2 games with a positive COVID test. He's a guy who's just strong as a bull, very good linebacker. That inside duo there, I think people here would put up with most out there in the country. And then the outside backers, Nick Herbig out of Hawaii, a sophomore, is someone who, they really think can end up being another difference maker. They've had a pretty good run of outside linebackers here the last several years. Mm-hmm. And Nick Herbig might be on a path to be that next one. Yeah, again, it's other than their wish list of being able to create some more turnovers, and I'm sure Jim Leonard, the defensive coordinator, and his staff will always find other areas where they can get better. But so far, these first 3 games, they have not given up much of anything.
No, and before the season, a couple of the preseason magazines that I read said if the Badgers had a weak link or were going to struggle on defense, it would be in that secondary. But on Saturday, even though Notre Dame had some success throwing, that secondary kept really everything but one play in front of them and played very well, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. And it's Notre Dame, it got to the point where they were going to just have to win it through the air there for a good chunk of the game. I mean, Jack Cohen had 25 pass attempts in the first half. And you said the one throw for the touchdown, that was a perfect pass from Jack. So you give those guys, all the credit. But even there, Faion Hicks, the Badger corner, made it tough. They at least forced a video review because he was really contesting the pass. But again, to their credit, Kevin Austin, the receiver, made a really, really good play. So, you're going to, and Leonard would know this, he was an All-American safety. You're going to give some up, but just be able to turn the page quickly and be able to be in position to make the play the next time. And I think the secondary has been pretty good with that here so far.
Well, the other side of the ball is where the issues seem to be. Quarterback Graham Mertz's completion percentage is under 60%. He's thrown 6 picks. And the timing in the passing game, it just looked off on Saturday. He had receivers open, and he was just missing them. And he's better than that. We all know it. The staff has to get him going, don't they?
No doubt. You got to find a way. He's saying all the right things because when you go through a stretch like this, it's pretty predictable. You're going to get the question, how's your confidence? How's your confidence? And you say it's good, I'm fine. But I think enough people who have watched the game, who know the position or who have played the position, can tell that he rushes at times. If the first read isn't there, it seems like things get murky a little faster than they should. I remember I was talking to Paul Christ after the first game against Penn State, and that was one of the things that they're trying to stress with him. Trust your protection. There are instances where it's going to break down and you're going to get hit, but there were other times where the protection was pretty good, but he wasn't quite trusting it yet and might have rushed to throw. The talent is there, and I think people here in Wisconsin might be getting a little – said, yeah, we keep hearing that, let's see it. But it's one of those deals where, if like in the baseball season, you're in an 0 for 20. If you you find a way to make a play. In the case of Graham, make that big throw, a third and whatever conversion throw, or just drop one in the bucket. I just think that if it could happen a time or two for him, it could really get him back and show everybody just how talented he is. But you got to have that happen first. And over here, they're hoping it'll be this Saturday. But until or unless it happens, it's really been a struggle for him. And to be honest, Mike, they're having a hard time trying to find anything to hang their hat on. They haven't been running the ball great, but sometimes you need your quarterback to be able to make that play, and it's just been tough for Graham here so far.
Yeah, it's been a tough go for him so far. You're right. He just needs to be in a position to have some good things happen, especially for his confidence. But we know, as fans and play-by-play announcers, that the bulk of the blame falls on the quarterback when the team struggles. But the offensive line, they seem to have not completely put it together yet.
You're correct. Yeah, it's been, for a program that really prides itself on having, really high-level offensive linemen, and this program has done that. It's just been difficult to get in sync. They're not blowing people off the ball the way they would expect to. An example of that the other day was they have a big play in the passing game. They get the ball to their tight end, and it's a huge play, and it looks like they're going to be on a scoring drive here, but to get a 4th and 1 and get stuffed. That's just not something that it's going to happen to every team, right? It's not like the first time it's happened in Wisconsin, but those are one of those instances where you got to convert. You got to be able to move the sticks, and they weren't able to do that. It's kind of interesting what they're doing this year, though, with Paul Christ and the offensive line coach, Joe Rudolph. When you get to the third series, you are seeing the second unit interior 3. They just believe those guys have earned the opportunity to get in there. The first 5 is getting the lion's share of the snaps, but the 2 guards in the center, you're seeing a little bit of a rotation there. With the hope, I would think, would be in the long run, in the course of a long season, that can really pay off for them. But you always wonder, and I think even Paul admits, you might risk a little bit in terms of continuity. But they clearly think this is the best way to go for this group right now. But it's a little bit different, not unique, but it's a little bit different from what people here are used to seeing, and it's going to be interesting to me to see if that continues, and assuming it does, if they could start to get some more success with it.
Well, the bad news is it can be really tricky to fix multiple issues during the season, but the good news is This offense has so much talent to work with, and getting back to what we were talking about a minute ago, the key is going to be getting Graham Mertz going. If the Badgers can do that, just get him in some positive situations where good things happen, things can turn around pretty quickly for the offense, can't it?
Well, they would like to think so, because they have some good veteran receivers. Danny Davis out of Springfield, Ohio, has been someone who can really get you that tough catch. He's like a quarterback's best friend. He can make the play that maybe a lot of other receivers can't. If it's tightrope at the sideline, winning battles for high pointing the ball, literally nearly scooping the ball off the turf, just making tough plays, showing good, strong hands. Kendrick Pryor gives him a lot of speed. He's a guy that in the course of his career has been good, not just receiving the ball, but he's been a dangerous jet sweep runner for them. And then Jake Ferguson, their tight end, he's caught a pass in every game he's played as a Badger. He's really developed into a nice all-around tight end at the college level. And then the running backs, there is not a Jonathan Taylor-like running back right now, but I think out of the group, they like what they have. And Chez Malusi, who's a transfer from Clemson, he's been their primary tailback. Jalen Berger, sophomore out of New Jersey. Isaac Garendo, the guy who's the fastest player on the team, had an 82-yard touchdown run a couple of weeks ago against Eastern Michigan. And then a true freshman, Braylon Allen, here in the state of Wisconsin, is chiseled. He's like 245 pounds and really put together. So it's maybe needs to be a little bit more by committee here, but they still believe that they've got a fair amount of talent here, and they can perform at a much, much higher rate than what they've shown so far.
Well, returning home this week to play Michigan offers the Badgers an opportunity to right the ship, get it going in the right direction. And, having that crazy home crowd behind them makes a huge difference. It is such a tough place to play, isn't it, for the opposition?
It's been, and maybe because we didn't have fans in the stands last year. I mean, I've watched a couple of the Michigan games. The place really is jumping at the big house. And for all three games, including last Saturday at Soldier Field with more of a 50-50 crowd, the atmosphere was terrific. And I think the first two games here, the Penn State game, it was electric. And, even a night game against Eastern Michigan, the crowd was really good and was into it. And I really think, even though there's disappointment with the fan base, as you would imagine, with a team that's off to a 1-2 start, quite honestly, anytime Michigan comes here, that's a big deal. And it's also a day where they're honoring Barry Alvarez, who retired as the athletics director. Chris McIntosh took over July 1st. There have been some celebrations for Barry, but this will be the first time that he can be recognized in front of a really big crowd. A lot of former players are going to be here, so there's going to be a little bit more pomp and circumstance to the day in general than what you might get for some other games. And the forecast, whatever a forecast is worth, a few days out, but it looks very promising. So hopefully a really good day and a really good crowd, and they get to watch a really good college football game.
Michigan came back to earth last week against Rutgers and found out you can't run the ball all day in the Big Ten and win. Michigan is going to have to be more diversified against this Badgers defense. They know it. The question is, can they do it? And if they can't, it could end up being a long day against this Badgers defense, because it's a tough enough matchup as it is, but if they can't throw, it could be lights out early.
Well, it's interesting because Leonard, the coordinator, was asked about that yesterday. We all know, we just look at the statistics and see how run heavy the Michigan offense has been, but the message that Leonard is telling his guys here is that, hey, just because they haven't thrown it doesn't mean they can't. The Badgers saw Cade McNamara last year a little bit. I know the game was lopsided, but they were impressed with what he was able to do and his ability to throw the football, and the weapons look to be there in the receiving core. And I know they're really impressed with the Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum combo, and he used the ball to either. But if you throw it to someone, especially like Corum in space, he can be a problem. So I think it's easy for any of us to rush to judgment, either really good or really bad, through the first 3 or 4 games of the season. But I think it's all, you and I have been around this long enough to know what a team is doing and how it's doing it now. It might not be overhauled, but you could see some tweaks and some different things as the season moves along. So I'll be fascinated to see if Michigan, if it can't run it the way it would like, or if it just chooses to throw a little bit more, how the Badger defense will be able to hold up to that. I think it's a really intriguing matchup between an offense that's run the ball really well against a defense that's defended it really well.
Absolutely. And that Michigan defense has been better than we expected so far, but they're going to be a bend but don't break unit all year. If the Badgers can clean it up and get Mertz going early, they should have some success against this defense, Matt, don't you think?
Well, it's more of a don't we hope over here. That I think, I mean, to be brutally frank, you have to show it if you're Wisconsin. And before the first game, if we were to do this interview, I would have told you I really think this offense can be more explosive than last year, but it hasn't shown it yet. I mean, it had a couple of long runs in a game against Eastern Michigan, but I mean, let's be honest. Eastern Michigan was really overmatched against teams that are good to very good defensively, like a Penn State and Notre Dame. They weren't explosive. So I think that in today's football, we talked to Jerry DiNardo over here a couple of days ago, and said and it's no secret. I think Paul Chryst would tell you the same thing. Teams right now against Wisconsin, they're making the Badgers drive a long way. It could be a little bend but don't break, but eventually they've been making mistakes, either critical turnovers, critical penalties, and it's happening in the red zone. The 2 pick sixes, the game got out of hand last week in the fourth quarter, but earlier in the game there were some missed opportunities just from, in a lot of cases, self-inflicted mistakes. So I think unless the Badgers can find a way to get some more big hits, be it running or passing or preferably both, I don't see defenses really changing philosophically. They're going to say, okay, we'll make you grind it here because you're showing us that you're going to make a mistake here at some point. So that's the tester for me on a couple of fronts. Can Wisconsin find a way to get a couple of bigger plays? But I think in the early portion of the game, in front of a home crowd that is probably kind of restless, if things aren't going well early, are you going to be able to not only overcome the team you're playing, but overcome the fans? Because you just don't want stuff to snowball on you in your home stadium. But from the perspective over here, I'm hoping that doesn't happen in Wisconsin, but it's something to watch for.
Final question before we let you get away, Matt. You've been around this program for a long time. You've seen them struggle like this from time to time. I mean, it happens. Are most of the issues, especially on the offensive side of the ball, the defense is great, you don't have to worry about that, but on the offensive side of the ball, what you're seeing, are those things that are fixable quickly?
I think, you hear the coaches talk about it a lot, correctable errors. I do think there are things that they can do to give themselves a better chance. And that's not, I mean, they've had instances where first and goal at the 1 becomes first and goal at the 6 because of a false start. Clean up stuff like that. Ball security. As a former running backs coach here said, ball security is job security both for you and for me. I thought was kind of a funny way of putting it, but it was effective. And it's Graham with the decision making too, and accuracy. And if you're going to try to get it into a tight window, get it in there, and don't get it to the other guy. Those are the kind of things that I think are correctable. Some of the other stuff, it'll be interesting because they're in a mode right now where a lot of things have to go just right. It kind of goes back to the explosiveness. I want to think they have it in them, but you got to show it against a team like a Michigan where, coaches love the 75-yard, 7-minute drive, but it's okay to have a 75-yard 2 or 3 play drive too. But until you see that, you're going to need to really be mistake-free, and that's something that I think they can correct but they have a fair amount of correcting to do in that regard.
Well, my hunch is we'll see the Badgers come out on fire this Saturday because they need this game big time. And with that home crowd and honoring Barry Alvarez, it's going to be a great atmosphere. Our guest on this week's Visitors Edition of the show has been the radio play-by-play voice of the Badgers, Matt Lepay. Matt, thanks for being so gracious with your time, and we look forward to having you back next year and chat.
Always a pleasure, Mike. Take care.
On Quick Hits today, the only injury news this week came from Jim's Monday presser. He said that Josh Ross was probable for Saturday, and that's good news because we need him on the field against the Badgers. Here are a few game day notes of interest. We lead this series with 71 wins against 17 losses. We played to a tie one time. The first meeting with the Badgers was in Madison on October 15, 1892, a 10-6 Michigan win. Last year in a game we'd like to forget, the Badgers pummeled us 49-11 in Ann Arbor on November 14th. Paul Christ is in his 7th year as head man at Wisconsin. He has a record of 57-21. In last year's COVID season, the Badgers were 4-3 overall, 3-3 in the Big Ten. They beat Wake Forest in the Mayo Bowl 42-28. They returned 17 starters, 7 on offense, 8 on defense, and 2 specialists. The weatherman says temps in Madison will be in the 70-degree range at kickoff. It will be cloudy, winds will be light, and there is a very slight chance of rain. Kickoff will be at 12 noon Eastern Time. If there is a litmus test on our schedule, this has to be it. Wisconsin embarrassed us in Madison 2 years ago and really did the same last year in Ann Arbor. We have not won a game up there in almost 2 decades. It will be no easy task on Saturday. But if we want fans to believe the program is back on track, we have to find a way to beat these guys and do it on the road up there at Camp Randall. Next week we stay on the road and travel to Nebraska. We already know it's a night game. And that place is another insane venue to play when it's a primetime game. On Tuesday's Michigan Game Day edition, my scheduled guest is Michael Cohen from the Detroit Free Press. It's Michael's first year on the beat, and we look forward to having him on the show. On Thursday's Nebraska Visitors edition, we are hoping to have Huskers radio play-by-play voice Greg Sharp. So make sure you join us. That does it for another week. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine weekend, everyone. Think victory, beat those Badgers up at Camp Randall. Until we meet again, take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!